My name's Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to empowering lives of freedom and impact through success in sales and the pursuit of self-development. We've got an amazing guest today, Philipp Humm, and I'm going with the Americanized version of the pronunciation, not the German pronunciation. Philipp, can you do us the honor of the German version?
Yeah, it's Philipp Humm.
Okay, Philipp Humm. I love it. That sounds pretty cool. He is a master storyteller. He's given TEDx talks. I just watched it last night, was nerding out. It was so good. I saw in the comments people saying this is the best talk I've ever seen. Seriously, like multiple people said that. He's consulted top companies like Uber, Oracle, Google, one of my alma maters, amazing companies where he's helped sales teams learn how to master story selling, which is a term that I believe Philipp coined, which is a really powerful one. There's no question that telling stories can help us stand out in a competitive market and really connect with prospects and improve our close rates. So today we're going to talk about things like mastering confidence, becoming the best storytellers we can become to be successful in sales and in life. If you get value out of this video, of course, hit the like button and share this conversation with more people who could benefit from the message. And make sure to check out Philipp's work, including his book, The Story Selling Method, which I've linked in the description of this video. Philipp, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing this morning?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing good, though I have to admit right now it's my last day here in my time in Latin America. I escaped the winter. I usually live in Amsterdam, and right now today I'm heading back. So mixed feelings about that.
So we're sad to see you go, but I imagine you're going to be coming back. It seems like you're a jet setter. And I saw a post on LinkedIn. It seems like you've traveled quite a bit, and you had a good post. You've been to different spots, and I think you really liked Medellin, but you gave some of the good and the bad and the ugly. And I feel like you're a good person to ask, like, what are some of your favorite countries that you've been to, and what are some of the things that you've enjoyed about those places?
Yeah, right now from a living perspective, Colombia, Medellin, where I'm right now, it's phenomenal.
Cool.
It's really, really cool. It has perfect temperature the entire year. It doesn't have these crazy fluctuations. Plus, it's pretty inspiring to work with. I met a lot of people that do something similar or are online entrepreneurs that just inspire me, gave me a few business ideas. So that's what I liked as well. And at the end, it's pretty cheap, right? And if we go there with an American or European salary, well, you live like a king here. And well, it's not safety as in the US or Europe, but it's relatively safety, I'd say.
Yeah, living like a king or queen does sound nice. So I think Medellin is going to be next on my list. And I actually minored in Spanish when I was younger, so it might be fun to maybe access the culture that way. But hey, you gave an amazing TEDx talk, and you talked about something that everyone wants to know about. How can I build authentic, lasting confidence? And I know the answers to the test because I saw the talk, I saw the whole thing, and I loved it. But can you speak to that core, I guess, secret or ingredient for you that worked to build lasting confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, and I've tried a lot throughout the years, right? I tried affirmations, visualizations, all the stuff that is out there. And that stuff sure helped a little bit. But the big change that I got was really when I started this one practice called constructive embarrassment. And constructive embarrassment is when you put yourself on purpose in an embarrassing situation. So that can be, let's say you go out in the street, you see a stranger and you go to the next stranger and ask that stranger for a hug. Or you go into your coffee shop around the corner and you just lie down on the floor. Or you go to the metro and just start singing in the metro. So the options are quite a lot. But yeah, that's for me and for all of my clients, this has been the single most important skill or technique to become a better speaker, to overcome their fear of public speaking.
And I remember that one of the main uncomfortable things you did was in Times Square. And could you walk us through that one? Like, what was your awkward challenge, and what did you experience as you went through the awkwardness and afterwards coming out of it?
Yeah, that was after my first longer challenge. So I had done a challenge every single day for an extended period. And then at the end of that period, I looked at my list and I had ticked off pretty much everything. But there was this one challenge left. And I thought, all right, Philipp, this is your graduation, right? You should go for that. And so back then I was living in New York, and I went to Times Square, to the metro station. It's very busy, right? 6 p.m. rush hour, everyone getting back from work. And I step into the metro. In the metro, I say, excuse me, can I have your attention, please? And everyone thinks like, this is another beggar, right? Or this is another crazy person. And I say, I want to sing a song for you. And I'm a terrible singer, right? I suck at singing big time. And I start singing this random reggaeton song. And I just start singing. And I sing that song in the worst voice possible for like 3 minutes long. People absolutely hate it, right? Most of the people just completely ignore me. There may be like 2 people that look at me. The rest just thinking, what the hell is going on there? But I stick with that, and I feel the sensations that went on in my body. And so once I'm done, it's really, I think 2 people clap out of this entire busy.
You got some claps.
Yeah, 2 claps, worth it.
That's
right?
Cool.
But I didn't care, right? Because there I did something that I was so terrified before. And once I did that, I knew, hey, if I can sing in a freaking subway in New York, well, I can easily stand and sing, easily speak in public in front of any other crowd.
Yeah. Dame más gasolina. Wasn't that the song?
That was the song. Yeah.
That's a good one. I love that. And you rolled the R very well, by the way. Have you come to now speak fluent Spanish?
Yeah, I've worked 2 years 1 year in Chile and 1 year in Brazil, and both of the times I did consulting work and fully in either language. And so
wow,
it just had to be fluent. Plus I had a Mexican girlfriend at one point.
Okay, well, that's amazing. So there are 3 ingredients that you mentioned in the talk: count, embrace, and appreciate. And can you speak to how to maybe apply these 3 ingredients in these stressful situations to get through them?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about each one of them. Let's start with count. So oftentimes what happens, let's see, we think, I want to embarrass myself today. Now I go into the street, and then somehow we're walking around for like 2 hours, trying to look for the perfect opportunity to embarrass ourselves. Obviously that doesn't exist. And so to help you stop procrastinating so much, it helps to count down in your head using the 5 seconds rule by Mel Robbins. So just, let's say you see an opportunity, you see someone there that you want to ask for an ice staring contest, and then you count down in your head, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, and you go for it. That way you stop procrastinating and you take action. So that's the first one, count. The second one is embrace. Oftentimes when we do these challenges, our initial feeling will be like to get up and leave that country, right? We're like, this is crazy. This is so uncomfortable. I don't want to do this anymore. But in the moment, resist that urge, right? Really try to embrace the sensations, the feelings, what is going on your body, what is going on in your mind. Really embrace that. When you learn how to embrace the feelings in these situations, well, you can apply the same in your business life as well. Next time you give a presentation, well, it's the same sensations that will come up, and you will know how to respond to them. So that's the second, embrace. And the third one is just to appreciate. Once you've done these exercises, just tap yourself on your shoulder, right, and say, hell yeah, I've done this crazy stuff that 99% of the people wouldn't dare to do, but it will get me closer to where I want to be. And so just thank yourself, appreciate what you've just done.
I love that. Count, embrace, and appreciate. And we've got someone here live with us, David Rivera. Shout out to David, that he got into tech sales and he started making cold calls for the first time. And he's been sharing his journey on LinkedIn. And this applies to cold calling as well, because that within the world of business can be pretty awkward and uncomfortable. And I could see how we could apply count, embrace, and just hang in there as you experience the chaos of emotion and appreciate afterwards. Any other thoughts you want to add, Philip, on how this applies in the world of, say, like stressful things like cold calling, presentations, or any other context in business?
Yeah. Why does it matter? And it's sometimes people struggle a little bit to make the connection in business. But the big thing is, one, the whole constructive embarrassment helps you just to be present in the moment and not so lost in your thoughts. The most successful sellers, they're present, they're in the moment. They don't worry about all the things that they will say or what could go wrong. They're in the moment. And so if you can stop caring so much what other people think, you can focus on just being in the moment and then really trying to help the other person. So it just helps you get out of your mind and be there to really serve the other person.
And personally, I just put out a video. I cold emailed a model. This is what happened, and I've actually applied some of my sales skills to try and land some dates. I want to get a girlfriend this year. I know it sounds funny. And the other day, I was at a coffee shop in downtown Austin, and I saw this group of 5 girls, and they were all very beautiful. And there's one I wanted to talk to, and my rationalizations were going off in my head. It's too crazy. But I just used like what you described, the 5-second thing, the Mel Robbins thing. And I did it. And I had some dumb line about like, you kind of sound like Miley Cyrus, but you seem a lot more classy. Like, and sorry, Miley, if we have you on in the future. And it went well. They ended up all having boyfriends, but I guess that was an example of getting out of my comfort zone. Now, I don't know though, if it's is applicable to, like, I could have fallen flat and really embarrassed myself, and it ultimately didn't work out. But I could see how it could apply to, dating as well, for those folks who want to get out there. And I think you alluded to that even in your talk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It helps big time for dating as well. Because at the end, what you're doing some people, and obviously I don't want to get into any pick up themes.
Yeah. And we'll go to storytelling in business soon too. Obviously, that's the crux of the conversation, but there's a lot of breadth to what you can speak to. And candidly, that's just been top of mind for me. So a little selfishly, but go ahead. Yeah.
It's a good point, right? Because especially in dating today, 99% of the people rely on dating apps to meet someone.
Yep.
And I don't know, from personal experience, this is often very frustrating, right? Because you just meet people very differently on the dating apps, and it's hard to connect with them. But if you just find the courage, and constructive embarrassment helps there. Well, if you find the courage to approach someone throughout the day and you just share a genuine compliment with them, or you just say hi, well, then you can already have a much more organic, real life interaction instead of all the filters that are in there in the dating apps. So I think it's beautiful to help you care a little bit less, and just, if you feel that you like someone, you can just go to them and say hi, and you've really nothing to lose there.
Yeah, no, it's so great to talk to you, because what you're sharing is it's empowering to embrace embarrassment, failure, even rejection, and being okay with it. I feel like we become unstoppable. And the last little anecdote I think of is I went to a house party on Saturday and I gave up drinking, right? So it was a personal decision, and it's easier to loosen up when you're drinking, But I had an idea of this funny line I was going to say as I walked into the party, and it was like, I was nervous as I thought about it, and then I show up and I say it, and it fell completely flat. But I kind of like yelled this line, and I felt embarrassed for the rest of the night. But it's like, it's so.
I think now you gotta share that. You gotta share that line now,
dude. It's so embarrassing. I'm like, everyone put. Dude, this is embarrassing. Not appropriate for the channel, but like, everyone put your hands up. You're under arrest for being too sexy. But and people just were like dead stare. Like, I didn't deliver it well, and like, but it was, oh my gosh. But it's just funny. It relates to what you're saying. But anyways, this is a serious podcast, so let's talk about business. But no, the only other thing is, like, when it comes to embarrassing ourselves, which I'm all for, would you say in the talk you encourage a 30-day challenge? Is that what, if you had to give a challenge to the audience to implement this, would it be 30 days?
Yeah, 30, or if you want a shorter one, it's maybe 14 days as well. But that, instead of going, let's say, for this 2-hour constructive embarrassment session where you just embarrass yourself a ton, just take consistent action. And anyone's like, I don't have time to do that every single day. Well, these exercises, they take you a minute, right? They maybe take you 2 minutes, and they give crazy transformation. So if you stick to something for 30 days, like constructive embarrassment, and just spending every day maybe like 2 minutes, you'll become a much more confident speaker, and you'll be much more present in your sales conversations, guaranteed.
So why is storytelling so impactful in business? What does it do? It almost at a, maybe it does something at a scientific or subconscious level. I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah. So first there on sellers, right? What happens oftentimes is when we try to sell something, well, we just throw out a bunch of facts, right? We're like, oh, we're the market leader for X, Y, and Z. We operate in 20 markets.
I've done that.
I've done that all the time. But at the end, how effective is that, right? We all know at the end, everyone is a market leader for some random stuff.
Yep.
So just saying these random facts, you're not standing out, right? You're blending in with exactly all your competitors. So just ask yourself, how memorable is that, right? If you mention these facts, not that memorable. And so storytelling helps you to become more memorable, to be remembered a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year later. By sharing stories, you will be much more likely to be remembered by your buyer and by any other stakeholder.
So I was looking at your profile, and you had a line that really alluded to the fact that we're all salespeople in some way. And do you have any thoughts on that in some of the scenarios where even people that aren't in sales roles are selling?
Yeah. And I always felt the same as well. I always said, I don't want to be a seller, right? I don't like that. But at the end, every one of us is every day pitching our ideas to someone. And that can be a coworker at work to get their buy-in for a project. That could be someone in our personal life that we want to persuade on, joining us on the next trip. But at the end, we are always in this game of selling our ideas. And it doesn't have to have this negative connotation. But at the end, we just want other people to collaborate with us. And then in that moment, stories help you to get their buy-in. That's it.
And so when it comes to storytelling, it seems like you have been able to marry your experience in the corporate world and then as an actor and comedian. And I'm curious, how much of storytelling is a formula versus that, your creativity and special sauce?
On that one, first I should say I did some acting courses and comedy courses, but I'm very far away from calling me an actor or comedian.
I'm your hype man today. I'm like, that's the greatest actor there is.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, Philip, I brought on a great guest recently. He has a good following in the B2B sales space. And I misinterpreted that he never missed his quota. And so I introduced him as a guy that literally never missed quota, like getting a perfect score on the SAT. And he's like, dude, I've missed my quota. So I'm just hyping. I'm a marketer, man.
I like it. I love it. Yeah. No, keep it up, please. This definitely is a good brush for my.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah.
But on that one, whether it's a science or whether it's this, also like natural ability. Like I always used to be lousy in storytelling. I used to be terrible at public speaking. I actually had one of the, I went to a reunion, I think it was a little bit longer than a year ago, for my MBA at Columbia University. And at that reunion, one of the guys, he walked up to me and he asked me, so Philip, what are you up to today? And I'm like, I'm a business storytelling coach. Huh, really? Someone never saw you as a storyteller. Ouch. Thought, wow, what a douchebag, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to go cry in the bathroom, but then I reflected, and back then I was just a terrible storyteller and an even worse public speaker. And so why am I sharing this right now? It's just to say that this is a science that you can learn. Sure, there are a lot of things that you can do differently, but at the end, it's something that you can just learn very structurally. Like I'm all the guy of methods, right? This thing didn't come naturally to me, but I know the techniques, and these techniques are available to anyone else. So if anyone is on the edge, like thinking I'm not a natural, it is a skill that you can easily learn with a few techniques.
So I've noticed that folks out there who are some of the tops of their fields, like yourself with storytelling, might not have been good at what originally at the art that now they've now mastered. And because of that, they might have drove them to really dissect and understand the science and structure behind telling great stories. So that's what I wanted to dig into now, is talking through how to come up with and structure and deliver a really compelling story. And maybe we can start at a high level, because I realize there's personal storytelling, and there's business storytelling. And then we could start to go into like specific business scenarios where storytelling might fit in. So do you mind sharing the high level architecture or thought process of building a great story first?
Yeah. So it comes with two components that are very relevant for building, crafting that story. The first one is structure, and the other one is story elements. And story elements is very much, how can I take an average moment, turn it into this beautiful story? And the structure is just like the foundation, right? What structure can you use? Should we start with structure?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited.
Okay, perfect. So when it comes to structure, there's a lot of different ideas, right? That's like, should I use the 3-step story structure from Aristotle, or the 5-step from Freitag, or the 17 steps of the hero's journey? Well, here's my thought. At the end, in business, you'll have 1 to 2 minutes, maybe 3. It's an incredible story. You have 1 or 2 minutes to share a story. In that time, you don't have the time to cover the 17 steps of the hero's journey. So what you want to pick is, you want to pick a story structure that is simple but effective. The story structure that I developed is a structure consisting of 4 steps called CARD, like the card in a supermarket. It's context, adversity, resolution, and takeaway. It's actually easy to remember, right? Just think of the story holding together, the card holding together all the ingredients of your story, like a card in the supermarket. Or if you're much simpler like me, just think of something that rhymes on fart. So there you have your structure. So
I love it. This is so simple to remember. CART. So context. Oh shoot. What's the next one?
Adversity,
resolution,
and takeaway.
Takeaway. Okay, cool.
And if you want to, I can give a quick background of what each one of them is.
I would love that. Yes, we all would love that.
Okay, perfect. So context is about giving some rough context. Where and when does it take place? Who's the main character? And what does that character want? Just a few sentences. Most of my stories, I just start saying something like, October 2017, I'm in my apartment in Amsterdam doing X, Y, and Z. Then I tell maybe 1 or 2 more things about the character, but that's it. The context is very, very brief. It's just about giving some rough background information about the main character and what that character is up to. You want to move as quickly as possible to the second step, which is adversity. Now, adversity, at one point of the story, there should be this challenge that character is facing. And that challenge can be anything that is substantial to that character. That can be a difficult decision, another person, physical challenge, an emotional challenge, whatever it is, as long as it's substantial to that main character. Now, this part, the challenge, is the most important part for any story. If you don't have a challenge, honestly, it's not a story. It's a pretty shit story.
Yeah, I've told a lot of stories where like there was no challenge and they're like, wow, good story. Or often I will be the one to say, you know what? I realized that was a crappy story. Don't judge myself. But like to your point, there needs to be some type of challenge, some drama.
Yeah, otherwise it's just not interesting. You don't get anyone to care about that.
Yeah.
And so as part of that adversity, really go deep into the emotions. Let us feel the struggle, the most important part of that story. But then the last one, after introducing the challenge, we want to introduce the resolution. So what are the actions, reactions, decisions taken to overcome that challenge? And at the end, how does the story turn out? So you do a bunch of actions. How does the story turn out at the end? What's the result? What's the transformation or the change that we're seeing right now in that story? And then once you've introduced the resolution, step 4, it's the takeaway. So very much about what did you learn from that experience? And just watch out there. It's not about that you say, the moral of the story or what you should take away. Because
in conclusion,
why not? Because this sounds very much like a preacher, right? You're like a preacher that is superior to the other people, and you don't want that to happen. So what I just prefer to say one sentence, and that is, what I learned from that experience is X, Y, and Z. Boom. It's what you learned from that experience. That's it. Then it's just your own experience that you share with them, and you invite them to reflect upon that, but you don't force it upon them. The takeaway is not a must for all of the stories, but it's a must for personal stories that you want to share in business. Because if, let's say, if I share a story about, I don't know, an interaction with my niece, well, that's a personal story. But if I somehow include a takeaway at the end, well, then I can make it business relevant to any audience or situation.
So I'd love to hear an example of a cart story.
Mhm.
And then I also would like to start to look at specific contexts where the storytelling is really important. Okay. And just as a teaser, a lot of our audience is looking to break into tech sales and land an entry level role or get promoted to another role. So they're interviewing and they're going through behavioral interviews, which we hear a lot about the STAR methodology, but I actually like CART better. I think that's a great, term for it. But this, the STAR, like situation, task, action, result. And so tell me about a time you received a piece of feedback. Tell me about a time you set a stretch goal and achieved it. They're looking for underlying behaviors. So it's like really important there. I could see, when you're cold calling, you need to be able to tell relevant customer stories to hook someone to, see value and meet with you. You're in a discovery call, in sales, telling stories. I mean, there's so many opportunities. So those are some teasers. Maybe we could look at those contexts. But regardless, I mean, it would be nice to hear from you, like an example CART story.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I'll share a story in a second. But before that, on STAR, I think it's a powerful structure. But yeah, what we just said, it's missing the challenge. Like, everyone can use it, but they just focus situation and task. Task could be challenge, but not really. So then it's tough to get this emotional hook with your interviewer if you're not including any challenge in there. So I suggest to modify that to show more, okay, what is actually at stake? What are the emotions involved in there?
Yes. And thank you for highlighting that differentiation that we can keep in mind.
Okay. No, for sure. Let me share a story of CART, just a sample story that I use once in a while in my workshops to get people more open towards change. Okay.
Cool.
In my case, that was in April 2022, I think it was. I went to the dentist in Amsterdam, where I live, and just routine checkup, right? Nothing special. But after looking at my teeth for a few seconds, the dentist suggested to get a 1 millimeter filling to my front teeth. Apparently, I've been grinding my teeth for years and years, and so they've gotten a little bit smaller. And I thought, hey, awesome, right? Seems cool. Let's do it. 30 minutes later, the dentist is done. She takes off her gloves, looks at me, and asks, "So, how are your new teeth?" And I'm like, well, it feels good. Wait a second. Why am I listening? This is bad. I make my money through speaking. That first day, it felt terrible, right? These new teeth feel completely alien. I clash my teeth, I spit, I lisp at all the bad things. And I started to get worried, right? Probably if I don't fix this, well, I got to go back to my previous jobs and working in some Excel sheet. But I tell myself, hey, be patient, right? Second day, it still feels pretty alien, but it's starting to get a little bit better. 1 week later, I rarely even notice the new teeth. They feel completely fine. I love my new teeth. Now, that's what change is about. Change will feel uncomfortable at first, but once you've embraced it and once you've given it a few days, it will feel completely natural to you. Right, that's that story example that I use once in a while in my workshops. Obviously, I wouldn't share that maybe in the customer conversation like that, just because it's a bigger story. But that just follows the CART structure with all the 4 components.
Yeah, no, that's so great. And it's just a message we all need to hear, that change is uncomfortable at first, but over time, it really can, it is usually the best thing for us. And I even had a YouTube channel before this that was more broadly personal growth focused before I went more to focusing on tech sales as a niche. And it was really hard for me to let go of that other channel. I was so emotionally attached. And I even, after initially letting go of it, felt like, shoot, I don't know if I did the right thing, but it's been the best decision I ever made. And it just took some time to open up and get on the new path. And so it really, what you shared resonated. So we not only did we get an example story, but we got a great lesson. And I appreciate the sneak peek behind one of your sessions that, would be a paid session with clients. So thank you for sharing that. I could see something like that potentially in a customer engagement. Like I'm selling digital transformation. Like I was at Google Cloud before. Now I'm at a consultancy working with companies to basically move from on-premise to a new operating model on the cloud. And like SaaS, sales as well is pretty transformative. So I don't know if we would like, I don't know. There might be a place though because change management's a huge part of it, Like maybe we could go there real quick. It feels kind of random, but I don't think it is. Like when you're selling a big transformation, multi-million-dollar deal, and you're getting to a stage where you're coming up on the resistance of all the change management, like we're gonna have to retrain our people, and this is a whole new way of being. Would some type of story like that actually be impactful?
Yeah.
So that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. On change, it's huge. Why? Because what happens most of the times we suggest a change and then we're like, here's argument 1, 2, and 3, why this makes sense. People don't give a shit. They are like, hey, I have my views. I don't like change. Everyone hates change. Hey, even I hate change actually, right? Everyone, the initial reaction when we get change, it's always like, no, I don't want this. This means some insecurity for my life. So when in these moments you can share a story, well, you can connect more with them on an emotional level instead of a logical level. And now what types of stories could you be sharing in these moments? One would be where you went through a change. You had initial some concerns, but then it turned out well. That would be one option. Another one would be just, let's say if you're suggesting a reorg within the company, finding a similar scenario of the same case in another region, in another company, and sharing the story of that company so that you give some credibility as well. Or just a story like mine right now, just a personal story where you get just people open for change. I think all of these 3 ones could work really well when it comes to getting someone's buy-in on change.
Yeah. And so I want to go back to in the future, telling stories in the context of business, but right now it'd be fun to focus on when you're trying to land a job. Particularly, we could look at the entry-level sales development role for folks that want to open up the path of tech sales, which is a great one. And you are getting some fundamental basic behavioral questions that are important to knock out of the park. And the way you're delivering and telling stories, like no question, that would just leave a memorable impression with these interviewers, and they wouldn't forget you. You'd really cut through the noise, and it's a competitive market. So there are examples of tell me about a time you received a piece of feedback and implemented it. Tell me about a time you set a stretch goal and achieved it. Tell me about a time you failed and how you bounce back from that. And so I'm wondering, like, maybe I could try and tell a story and then like you could give me coaching or something on, like that could be cool. So, okay. It was the fourth quarter. I'd been a year in my role.
What's the question though?
Oh, shoot. Okay. Yeah. Good point. Tell me. Yeah. Cause I threw so many out there. Thank you. Thanks, coach. Tell me about a time you like maybe failed in a business context and how you bounced back from it. So I'm going to try and borrow a story from someone I had worked with in the past that ended up getting into tech sales with Snowflake actually. And so it was the fourth quarter and I was a loan officer, and I had one more deal in front of me that I needed to knock down in order to hit my accelerators. And then I would really make the big bucks and tap into the upside of commission. I thought I had the deal in the palm of my hand, and I just had a final meeting to set up with the guy that I was working with and his wife, who I hadn't really spoken to. But she was coming to meet up over coffee, and we're going to get a contract signed. We're going to have the notary. That the notary is actually on the way. And I was sitting with a couple, and for some reason, all of a sudden, before the notary got here, the wife thought suddenly that she was this economist and she was an expert on interest rates, and she thought they were going up or down, I forget what. And she decided to step out and say, we're not going to do this thing. And as a result, I unexpectedly didn't get the deal. I missed accelerators. I was really disappointed. But what I learned from that is going forward, I would never take for granted that a deal was in the palm of my hand. And 2, I would think about everyone on the buying committee, including wifey, who's probably the real boss, and make sure I was in consensus and bought in with her. And I proactively foresaw objections. And I let that experience of failing motivate me to go into the next year and crushed my quota and hit accelerators. And from there, I ended up even coaching others on my team to help them be more successful. Okay. A little bit rough, but that was an example of a story to tell me about a time I failed and improve. So I'd love your coaching on how can we make this better?
Yeah. First, it's an incredible story, and good job on coming up with the story on the spot here. Really well done. I enjoyed it. So let me chip in with some feedback. Well, first, how did it feel for you?
I felt a little bit chaotic, but and so of course, if maybe I practiced a little more, it could have been crisper. But I'm like, you know what? Given the context, not horrible. But it could have been maybe a more structured and organized and a little more crisp for sure. That was my first impression.
Yeah, felt that it was actually pretty organized, and I didn't feel that it had crazy lot of information that were not needed. So in total, it was 1 minute 30 seconds, which is great. The best stories are around that time. So especially for interview situations, I think between 1 and 2 minutes, that's perfect. So good job on the timing. What I liked, you got us straight into the action, right? You immediately brought us into the room where you're talking to the wife and the husband. And I think you didn't waste any time setting too much context. I think that was very powerful. You also brought us into the implications of what if you gain that deal. And this one, you could always choose to make it even slightly bigger, right? You can say, oh man, this would be so cool. If I get this deal, well, tomorrow I'll go to the car dealer and buy my mom a car.
Oh, okay. That's okay. So basically I could have magnified it even more.
You
like what I would have done with that. Yeah,
exactly. And these are the thoughts that are going on in your head. You can make them a little bit bigger if you wanted to make it.
Ooh, I would definitely do that. Great feedback.
If you want to spice it up there a little bit, that's one thing. Then the biggest moment of that entire story is the moment when the wife decides to leave the room and say, okay, we're not going to do this. And you could have kind of owned that a little bit more. Almost like bringing us into that conversation when she asks you some question. It's like, so Chris, what's this thing? Okay. What's this thing? Okay. Yeah. I don't think that I'm gonna go through with this. I don't think this deal makes sense. And she walks out, right? But take us into the conversation that you had in the moment.
Okay.
So what did she say? And almost like, because you went there, you introduced the story, and then it was like, okay, and then this woman walked out and the deal was done. But this is the most important, this is the most exciting part of the story. So take us into the conversation a little bit. What went on there between the two of you?
Okay.
Or maybe that she's just looking, she's going through the notes and like, yeah.
And suddenly she looks me dead in the eyes and says, we're not doing it. Interest rates are down. And she tranche it. I made up the word tranche. I don't know if tranche is a word. I think it's a word, but, or she like maybe I could describe how she left dramatically, or so you're saying at the end of the day, just emphasize that moment. I kind of glossed over it, that like key moment.
Exactly. Obviously, watch out that it doesn't sound like a theater performance.
Okay.
And she rushed out of the door. Now, obviously, you still do it in your own voice, in your own style. But I think you could have more time to own it and bring us into some of the details because it's really juicy there. What caused her to do that?
Okay. So own that moment, make it more juicy. In the beginning, I could have magnified what I would have done with the commission. And one thing I thought of too is like maybe the cost of not hitting it, like what was on the line. But do you find that is that helpful to not only magnify like the upside, but also the flip side, or is that a little overanalyzing?
No, it's a great question. You can do both. So you can focus either on the pain or on the pleasure, or you can focus on both of them. I'd say pick the one that obviously people are usually more interested in the pain. So if you say, man, if I don't close this deal, I'll lose my job, right? I'll lose this good ranking, and they'll probably put me back 1 year. So I think usually people care more about that, but both of them are fine.
Okay. And then the final thing was the resolution of what I think I used your term, like what I learned, right? Instead of being truthful or in conclusion, but any other thoughts? Was the resolution solid or anything you would add?
It's solid. The only suggestion that I would have there is focus on one takeaway. Because right now you said two,
Yeah.
And which is already good. It's better than 10, but usually it's tough for people to remember. I'd rather focus just on one thing and then really nail that, and maybe iterate it so that people are clear. Because right now, if I remember, okay, what did you do? What did you learn from that? Already just having two makes it a little bit harder. So always focus just on one takeaway.
Okay. One takeaway. That's really helpful. I noticed that I can be a little bit of a perfectionist. Many of us out there can relate. And I think sometimes that manifests in trying to give like, oh, I want to give a bunch of examples. I want to say the same thing multiple times. So that's really good feedback that what I'm taking away is less is more and just pick one key takeaway.
Exactly.
Okay. So, Philip, I work with other engineering leaders like yourself who are struggling with, cloud costs that are ballooning out of control, right? I was working with another series that was in the AI space, and what they found when we worked with them was that we could go in and do a free analysis, and we'd look at their billing and usage patterns and show them that they're actually overspending by 20%. We were able to help them achieve those savings, free up cash to invest in other areas of the business. And the VP of engineering that I was working with at this company actually got promoted as a result of it. I'd love to see if we could explore some similar results with you. Do you have any time? Blah, blah. I dove right into a cold calling example, right? And I'd love your thoughts on, that's, I would say that's a form of storytelling. Like, do you have any thoughts on how that was delivered and maybe some tweaks? I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'd love your perspective.
Yeah, on that one. So on cold calling, I wouldn't share a story proactively, an entire story. I'd much rather say, hey, look, about a year ago, we worked with this customer who's very similar to you. They were going through very similar struggles. Would it be helpful if I shared what they were going through and how they fixed it? And then you ask them, right? If they say, yeah, please tell me, well, then you go into your story. If not, well, you don't share your story. So I would give them more the option of choosing to hear that story or not. So always just ask them, say, hey, this reminds me of a similar situation. And then do they want to hear about that?
Okay, perfect. So always qualify if they're interested to hear the story. And what I did, by the way, I didn't give context, just like I jumped right into that answer before telling you the question being asked for the interview. But I'm assuming that, they picked up and maybe you diffuse some of the sales defenses, that you acknowledge you're an interruption and asked if for permission to share why you're calling. And so maybe, do you think like it could be good to just then have that be at the beginning of your cold call, essentially, to check for like, do you mind if I share a story? Like,
Only once you've got a good understanding of what they're really struggling with. Because if you just share out of the blue a random story that is completely irrelevant for them, well, then you're often just jeopardizing your own ways of success there. So I would only do that once you have done your due diligence. Let's say they talk for 5-10 minutes. You have a clear understanding of their problems. You did the discovery. Then you say, interesting. Yeah. This reminds me a little bit of a customer I had a year ago. And then you ask if they want to hear about that. But really, I would only share a story once you have an understanding of what they're struggling with. Otherwise, I wouldn't share a story.
so what I'm taking away is be surgical and precise when you share your stories for impact, knowing they have a pain that was similar to a pain another customer solved for. And so in discovery calls, that's like, we'll definitely have the opportunity to understand, the customer agreed to maybe 30 minutes to share about their vision and priorities and challenges. And so we'll be able to ideally have a quiver of stories that we've collected, different customer case studies and things to pull out at the right times. And in the cold call, I mean, maybe I did some research and we've worked with again, I think I allude to a Series A SaaS company, maybe in their vertical, and we help that similar company achieve a certain result. But even then, though, in the cold call, you're saying just kind of, because here's what I would open it like, hey, Philip, this is Chris calling from Bestselling Global. I realize I'm completely calling out of the blue and interrupting your day. Do you have 15 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? Something like that. And maybe you'd say like, sure, you've got 10 seconds or sure, you got a minute. And then from there, I'd have an opportunity to share why I'm calling. And are you saying that then still though, it's like, hey, I did some research and we worked with a similar company like yourself. would you, to achieve, substantially save on cloud costs, would you mind if I told you a quick story on how we help, what we did for them? Like, can you coach me there on that?
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's better context too.
Yeah, it's good context. But maybe there are other views on this one. I usually don't like to use stories that much in cold calling. Just
Okay, I got it.
there is already a lot of resistance. And when you go into, even if it's just a 1 minute story, people are like, dude, just leave me alone. I don't want to hear this. And so I usually don't do stories and cold calls that much, but there are maybe other people that disagree on this one. What I like to focus on cold calls more is just social proof, right? If you can say, hey, okay, we've now worked with, I don't know, half of the Fortune 500 companies, 100 companies, that gives much more credibility. Or if you say the specific names, brands that you've worked with, I think this is much better than just sharing a story there, because you haven't built the trust yet.
That's such a good insight. I appreciate you exploring cold calling with me, because it's a real topic of interest for this audience. And it's important in sales. And if you get good at it, it's pretty high converting if you have the right data and have an actual legit number. So focus on social proof. Don't get too fluffy. Don't save the stories for the discovery, session. So, okay. Say we do set the meeting and we enter into a discovery call with a client to, look at their needs and see if there's a fit to partner together. Maybe taking a step back, like if you were a salesperson, how much time would you spend collecting stories to equip yourself to go out in the field and really be successful? Like, what is that process of story collection?
Yeah, that one is what you usually call a story bank. So anytime that you have something that you could potentially use in business, it's a story you save in a story bank. So it's a central place where you classify, store, and capture these stories. And for that, if you want to be a really successful storyteller, you want to have a few of the stories in there for different situations. So especially in sales, you want to have that maybe 10 to 15 stories in there of different types that you can then pull out strategically. But the good thing is with these things, like you have to do this maybe once. Sure, you add a story here once in a while, but then you can use these stories pretty much for the rest of your life, right? So that's the cool thing about it. You prepared once, and then you can pull them out strategically whenever there's a good opportunity.
Okay, got it. Do you have an example of a business story in the context of a discovery call? And I don't know, we might have to be mindful of your past clients, but when we're past the cold call, we're in a meeting, it's 30-minute meeting, and you find out there's a certain pain point that the customer has. Like, I'm putting you on the spot, but do you have some type of example with the CART method for telling a business story?
Yeah, for sure. For example, I have once in a while, I get customers who want to work more on that confidence piece, or who don't feel that secure. And if I see that they're anyway similar, I share the following story. So that story is a couple of years back, I hopped on a coaching call with Ezra, with this woman from Canada. She was I think, customer success manager. And when she got into the call, I was greeted by this bundle of energy, right? Very extroverted, high energy, very charismatic. And I already thought like, hey, how am I supposed to help her, right? She should probably be coaching me. But at one point I asked her to share a story. The moment I said story, just this entire energy just boom, collapsed. She shrank into almost like this pile of misery. And she was looking down. She was all over the place, getting a little bit lost. After the story, I asked her, hey, Ezra, what went on there, right? What's going on? And she said, well, I feel that, what did you say? I feel that people are making fun of me, that that I'm just not good enough here, right? That my English is not good enough. I asked her a few more questions, and it turned out that she had moved from Iraq when she was 12 years old. So when she was younger, a lot of people were making fun of her English. And so anytime that she spoke up, she still had that in the back of her head. And so when I heard that, I knew that, okay, it's no worth to look into the story structure or the story elements, but we needed to really work on overcoming her self-limiting beliefs. So what we do instead then, we just focus on overcoming her beliefs and also rewriting the story that she was telling herself. After that 1 hour session, I asked her to share a story again. And this time I was like, wow. After the story, I said, Ezra, this was an incredible story. Do you see the difference? And she was just beyond happy, right? She even cried because she noticed that, okay, she has just been telling herself these things, but they don't have to be true, and that she can actually be a great storyteller. And yeah, that's one of the stories that I would share then with someone that where I feel that confidence, they're holding themselves back because of any self-limiting beliefs. Then I would share that story.
Yeah, there's definitely an emotional undertone of it, and it's definitely relatable too. I think we all have a best version of ourselves that we're born that way, but sometimes we can get small or become disconnected from it, and certain things and stories can trigger it. And I can think of myself, certain scenarios where I could seem like the most confident guy and gregarious guy, but some things could trigger me. And all of a sudden, you described it well, like almost collapsing on myself. And so it's just relatable. And I want to dig in a little more. We have limited time. We have a little under 10 minutes, but rewriting limiting beliefs, because I notice a lot of people that I work with around cold calling or breaking into tech sales. And so looking at interviewing, there is a underlying limiting belief at play that actually like confidence is really at the heart of success more than saying the perfect scripts. I remember when I got a job at Oracle, I just cut my teeth in sales. I shook the recruiter Sean's hand and said, "Bring me in. I'm going to make it happen." And it's just, I was confident in that moment, and it made all the difference. So I just think confidence is so key in sales, whether we're selling us for a job or landing clients. So can you speak a little more to what you think is at play when it comes to rewriting limiting beliefs?
Yeah. What I like to do is really rewrite the story you tell yourself. So how does it consist? It consists of a few steps. The first one is first identify that self-limiting belief. Oftentimes we're not even aware. What are you telling yourself that you almost accept as if it was the truth? Maybe it says, okay, hey, I'm not good to speak in public. The client doesn't like me. I'm not confident. My voice sounds a little bit too monotone. Whatever it is, right? What are the things that you tell yourself? And how you can usually identify that is by looking for the sentences that say like, I never. That's usually a good indication that this is a self-limiting belief that you've been telling yourself. Once you've got that self-limiting belief, the second step is to uncover the moment behind that belief. Let's say if I say, I'm a shitty public speaker. Well, what's a data point behind that? What's an experience in the past where I think I lived that belief? So for example, that was, 10 years ago where I spoke in front of a big group and just completely forgot what I wanted to say. That could be that moment. Now, you may be wondering, why should I revisit this maybe past traumatic experience? Well, it's because at the end, we need to make peace with our past. It's not that you need to love your past, but you need to accept it. And so if you just push these past events away, you're never making peace with it. It's very tough to be confident to feel confident if you don't accept your past. So that one is just about identifying the moments in the past where you felt that way. So that's the second one. And then the third one is to start rewriting your story. The biggest thing there is to recognize that whatever happened is not the end of your story. It's the middle, right? Wherever you are right now, maybe you had a shitty traumatic experience, but that's only the middle. Your story doesn't have to end there, but you can make it continue. So how do you want your story to continue? What are the actions you want to take in an ideal world to overcome that problem? And also, what's the ideal outcome of the story? Where do you want your story to go? So maybe that's speaking in front of others. Maybe it's landing this big gig. You can think about the beautiful things, how you want the story to turn out at the end. Imagine how it will turn out at the end. And then you've pretty much rewritten your story. After that, it's just about putting it down and rehearsing it out loud a few times so that it's getting more and more comfortable and feels more like actually a real story.
Man, talk about looking not just at stories we tell externally to others, but the stories we tell ourselves. Like, we've really hit storytelling on many dimensions. And Philip, I've learned so much from you. I've been inspired. We've laughed together. And gosh, we're not done yet, right? We still have 5 minutes, but really encouraging the audience to check out the TEDx, check out the Story Selling Method book linked in the description of this video as it floats out in the YouTube sea. And also, you've got a great YouTube channel, by the way. I checked it out, and it's just, you're doing an awesome job there. So we did get a question from Olaf, and thank you to the folks who've shown up live, and again, to the folks who will see this in the future out on YouTube. But Olaf says, love the stream. Quick question. It's a sales related question. What's the maximum amount of time you would research a company that you're going to call and mail? So, I mean, this falls a little more into, like preparation. But do you have any thoughts, Philip, whether it's in the context of your selling or just more generally speaking?
Yeah. I try to do research for 5 to 10 minutes before. But that being said, this is my personal style. I feel confident that I can use stories if I research for 5 to 10 minutes. That being said, I know some salespeople that are incredible, that have the best quotas in their entire company, and they research their companies for 30 minutes. So it's about finding your own style and what works with you. I know for me, it's good enough 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, what I like is that you're not overanalyzing or overdoing it. You're putting in the work and preparing and then trusting in yourself. And just an anecdote from my sales experience is that I've always leaned a little more to be a bit over analytical, and I've done deep research, and it can be great. But I just remember when I was at Google Cloud, I was researching a company and looking at their Data V product, and I had a presentation or in thought process and questioning prepared around that. And when I met the CEO for the first time on a virtual call, the first thing he said is, we are deprioritizing Data V and becoming a services company. So Olaf, it didn't matter. My research didn't matter. But what does matter is, I think, what Philip is describing, investing in ourselves to become confident communicators, to have a quiver of stories at our disposal to pull out at the right times. And yes, putting in the research. But I think that's why, Philip, it's powerful what you don't overdo it. So isn't that funny that I'll never forget that lesson.
You were ready with all the questions around that one product.
Yeah. It's like, hey, we can help you in these areas, and it was all out the window. So Olaf, thank you for the question. And so Philip, I want to encourage everyone to check out the book, and I love the idea of story selling. I mean, that's such a good name. As we start to wrap up the conversation, are there any aspects of the book that you really enjoyed writing, or parts that you want to hit on that like we might not have touched on, just to give the audience a little tease?
Yeah. I guess the one thing that we didn't touch upon is really, what are the elements that make any story more interesting?
Yes, that sounds great.
And so that requires a little bit more time, but it's definitely worth to check it out, because today we covered the foundation, the structure, but at the end, the juicy stuff, the cool stuff is the story element. So how can you take any average moment, say you drip right now some water over your shirt, how can you make this the most life-changing story if you wanted to?
Ooh, talk about a cliffhanger. Can you we've got like 2 minutes, right? And I want to be respectful of your time, but could you drip, pun intended, like one or two thoughts that are actionable?
Yeah, one where I gave you some feedback in your story was using more dialogue, especially for sales professions, for sales stories. Instead of just saying, oh, the customer was very happy working with me. Say, 2 weeks later, I got a call from Chris. Chris said, wow, Philip, thank you so much. This was by far the best video we've ever uploaded here on this channel. You're incredible. Do you see the difference? Instead of just saying, yes, that guy was happy, I take the exact words in that moment. It's then not bragging. You're just sharing the actual words. And it makes any story 10 times more interesting if you include the words or the dialogue of that moment.
Okay. What's one more nugget?
One more is sharing the inner thoughts. So what is going on in your mind? For example, you use that in your story as well. And you say, if that deal goes through, this will get me promoted, right? My boss will probably walk up to me and sign me a check on the spot.
I'll
How
finally get a girlfriend. No, I'm
did
kidding.
you finally get a girlfriend, right? So what is going on? What is going on in your mind? What are the thoughts in these moments? That way you make it much more emotional on the spot as well.
And as I closed up my interview with Philipp Humm, I thought to myself, man, I love this guy. He's amazing. I want to be friends, and everyone should check out his book. That's what I was thinking. But Philipp, thank you so much for the time, man. And any other, again, I encourage everyone to check out the book, The Story Selling Method. Check out Philipp's YouTube channel, his site. You'll see a course on there. Just do a little, searching around, and you'll find some great stuff. Any other final calls to action, Philipp, before we sign off? Because I know you got to get on a flight later today.
Yeah. No, I'm just right now in April, I'll publish my second book, which is Public Speaking with Confidence. So if anyone wants to check that out, visit my website. And there you find all the details about the upcoming launch. And if you want to become, check it out when it's out, you can do that. Or if you want to be part of the launch team and check it out before, you can also sign up there.
Well, I think most of us all want to become, self-expressed great speakers. So guys, definitely check that out. Philipp, thank you so much for the time. Travel safe. And I look forward to the next time we reunited. Love to have you back on. To the audience, thank you for showing up live. And to those who check this out in the future as it floats out in the YouTube sea, happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Chris.
y'all.
Cheers.
Thanks, Philipp.